Thank you for your 10-minute just do it practice talk, Ting. Does anyone have a question?
I have one. Stan, uh, Ting, I'm glad you talked about just do it because I was thinking about that today and wanted to ask about it. Um, so I was wondering, um, uh, Stan, if you don't mind just sort of elaborating on the meaning of just do it. It just seems like it could be taken in a lot of different ways, and it's still kind of hazy in my mind.
Yeah, just do it means when you are doing something, do it completely, 100%. So this is a little contrary to the popular notion that we must multitask because that's how our lives are. That's how our social situation is. We are so busy that we find ourselves doing many things at once. And sometimes that may be necessary. And if that's necessary, just completely multitask. Okay. uh, so doing things with a sense of wholeheartedness, with you know, a appreciation for the value of what you're doing in itself. So you could start with just breathing in meditation. We're always breathing. This is nothing special. We don't even have to pay attention to it. We will just breathe. But in meditation practice, we 100% uh, just breathe. Perhaps we have a mantra um, that goes along with the breath, or some other focus, perhaps posture. Uh, so breath and posture, certainly go together. So you might say, well, that's a kind of multitasking, um, but that's how our lives are. Our lives, I mean, sitting and breathing is a very simple thing to do compared to what we are called on to do throughout our lives every day. Pay attention to, it seems, multiple things all the time, um, sometimes failing miserably at it and completely spacing out. Um, I suppose you could just completely space out, and that might be just doing it, but that's not what's meant by this teaching phrase. Um, you know, Thich Nhat Hanh, of course, was a great Buddhist teacher, and he actually comes from a Zen background, Vietnam, kind of a going back, scholars argue over this. They think that Buddhism first came to Vietnam 2 or 3 centuries before the Common Era, that the Indian merchants coming by sea route would go through Vietnam and then to wherever they were going in China, and certainly by the second century of the Common Era, it was a Buddhist country, and very close connections with Chinese Buddhism. Um, so his I don't know any of his books except I've heard of. I think it's called The Art of Mindfulness. Uh, that is just doing it. Mindfulness is another phrase, another teaching word that we use. And he also, the only other thing I know about him as a teacher uh, is, the importance he placed on breath. That breath uh, is a bridge between mind and body. Breath, unifies, you know, our activity and our consciousness, and that's why it's so important in meditation practice. Uh, and if you have a strong breath practice, association, with a mantra. This can influence how you live your life, apart from practice. So practice is really practice in senses. Just do it, that meaning of practice, and practicing for the rest of your activities in life. So paying attention to everything, seeing everyone with an open heart, an open mind, a how can I help mind. So that's where our practice really comes alive. And just doing it, you know, for its own sake, for the sake of the other person, not with any notion of gaining anything by it. I think all of that is somehow contained in that teaching phrase, just do it. So thank you for your question. Are there any other questions? Have I completely settled all of your doubts? I don't think so.
Hey, Stan.
Yes?
Uh, so your comments about Vietnam made me think, what, when Buddhism left India for, wherever else it went, what actually traveled? Was it precepts? Was it um, meditation practice? Was it um, sutras? What actually did people latch onto, do you think?
Well, I would say all of the above, but we have the best evidence for sutras actually teaching, in other words, traveling more than, say, specific meditation practices. Um, so, translating the sutras is which again, there is strong scholarly evidence that sutras were brought from India to Vietnam a couple of centuries before what we call the Common Era, BCE. Uh, and the translation projects, both in Vietnam, which we don't usually think of, we think of China, um, but Vietnam and Korea also, not so much Korea. Korea was really dependent on Chinese translations of the sutras, but in Vietnam and in China, the sutras were translated, and this is what is really, certainly, what it was tangibly, brought from India. And the sutras, of course, contain the teachings, and I think this is how the teachings were really transmitted at, in the early stages of this transmission. And of course, uh, Bodhidharma comes to China actually quite late, in the historical epoch that we're talking about, 5th, 6th century um, of the Common Era. So many, many centuries after there was all of this, I'm not going to say back and forth. It mostly just came to India. Um, but I'm forgetting the name now of the Chinese monk. Somebody help me, who around the time of the 6th century traveled to India and brought back all of the sutras, and then Kumarajiva um, established his tremendous sutra translation project in China. And that's what brought all of these earlier efforts to complete fruition. And so, the entire corpus was translated into Chinese. So I think that's what at least the early transmission was. Um, I don't know actually when, say, precepts, which would be, of course, monastic precepts, is probably what you're referring to, exactly when that was established in Northern Asia, in China, and then spread, but at a fairly early period. But I'm sorry, I just don't know. But I would be pretty sure of sutras being, the earliest and most substantive early transmission of Buddhist practice and teaching into China. If I find out more, I'll let you know. Are there any other questions?
Stan, this is Mike. Building on what Tom asked, I'm reading Sosan's The Mirror of Zen. How does that fit into the timeline that you just sort of described? When did that come together?
Um, the notion of mirror um, is actually first associated with in Korea with Wisong, who's one of the two really pioneering teachers in Korea, Wisong and Won Hyo. I'm teaching a class on Wisong and Won Hyo on the online Sangha in a couple of weeks. Both of them, traveled to China, or at least they both tried to go to China. Wisong actually was able to complete the journey. It's a famous story. Wang Hyo and Wisong are going off to China to study the sutras, to learn the sutras, and to bring back sutras and manuscripts, translate them. Actually, they all read Korean fine, but to do commentaries on the sutras. And on the way, and they were traveling overland at that point, they stopped to rest for the night in they thought was a cave, and it seemed quite cozy. They arrived in darkness, and Wan Hyo, during the middle of the night, was very thirsty, and kind of groping around in his sleep, he came across what he thought was a cup of water, and he drank it, and he found it truly refreshing. And when he woke up in the morning, he realized that this was not a cave, but a crypt, a burial cave. And that what he had drunk from was not a cup of water, but a skull full of rancid water and scum and everything. And he immediately threw up and had a great awakening from this, and decided he did not have to go to China. So he told Wisong, "Okay, I understand everything now, so I'm going back." Wisong went to China and stayed for 7 years, and brought back a lot of sutras. And so I'm not going to go on about Wisong and Wan Hyo much more, but I'll just say one more thing. It was Wan Hyo, after Wisong brought back all of the manuscripts, he did extensive commentaries on all of them. The man was an outright genius. And that was the true establishment of Buddhism in Korea. Um, Wisong only, I guess I am going to talk more about them. Wisong, all of Wan Hyo's manuscripts, or a lot of them, and there are hundreds of them, survive, and they're all being edited now um, by a former monk who actually passed through Lawrence a couple of times, and we got to know him. It's a tremendous effort at the university in Hawaii. Almost as big a translation effort as happened in the 5th century. So that's, Wisong only left one written thing. And it's exactly 210 Chinese characters. And it's called the Ocean Seal chart. And it's this diagram. It's like a maze, and it starts in the middle with the word Dharma, and it winds its way around and around and around, and this way and that way, and very symmetrically, and comes back to the middle, and the last word is Buddha. So you have Buddha and Dharma right at the center. And it is a work of genius. It's just a complete explanation of the Avatamsaka Sutra uh, of Huayan Buddhism. The Avatamsaka Sutra runs to about 1,500 pages, and it's condensed into 210 Chinese characters by Wisam. So I'll stop my lecture at that point and ask if there are any more questions.
There was a question. The question was about the mirror.
Uh, what about the mirror? I've forgotten already.
It was about mirror of Zen.
Oh, mirror.
Sosan's mirror of Zen.
Yeah. Um, so that's 15 centuries later. And Judy is an expert on Sosan's mirror of Zen. So the mirror of Zen originates there. I'm sorry, I got carried away with the ocean is considered in the Ocean Seal treatise is considered to be a mirror. It reflects and completely contains all reality. So I got off on that notion of mirror and then everything else connected with it. So excuse me. But yeah, our mirror of Zen comes from Sosan's mirror of Zen, which, Judy, what is the best edition of that?
There really is no best edition. So that's a technical question. Let's not talk about it.
Okay, we won't talk about it, but there's one that's done by a former monk in our school, and I won't name it because it's not an adequate edition.
There are no adequate editions. It's quite
No
good.
adequate editions. All right, thank you for your question and for your clarification, Judy. And we have maybe time for one more question.
I have one question. This is Sean. We all know that do not make any bad karma.
Yeah.
But why we don't also want to make any good karmas? Just don't make any karma in general. So I was just wondering, say, for example, if I'm helping someone, but with an I in this help, is that making good karma? Or if I'm helping someone without I in there, is that not making any karma? So can you explain about not making any good karma?
Yeah, we say don't make anything, never mind good karma, bad karma. So what is this making? So we're always, unfortunately, making something. And once we make it, we hold on to it for dear life. So we make up everything. So best not to make anything, good karma or bad karma. But you have to do something, right? So if you only help people in this life and never hurt people, you are only making good karma. There's nothing wrong with making good karma. But even that, don't hold on to it. Karma is an interesting word. It means result of action. So anytime you act, there is a result. That's absolutely inescapable. So don't make anything doesn't refer to or doesn't suggest total quietism. It doesn't mean don't do anything. It means when you do something, don't hold on to it. Just do it. So the antidote to this teaching, don't make karma, is just do it. So our teaching sometimes seems very complicated. This is kind of a difficult notion. Yeah. Every act has a result. So karma, ma is a suffix that means result. Like drama is a very similar word. Dra also means do. So drama, and the drama of our lives, not talking about what's on the stage, play acting. Yeah. Karma, drama. Don't hold on to it. Just do, because you have to do, the best you can and do it for all beings. then good karma, bad karma, no problem. Just how do you use your karma, whether it's good karma or bad karma? So maybe that's another question. How do you use your karma? So I will leave everyone with that question because we have run out of time. Thank you.